in the other player's hands. It's like you have to have the perfect scenario where you have the best hand, they have a really good hand, and they believe that their hand is better than your hand. That is the formula, and it's so many factors. Same thing with this. You got to put out something that tugs at the heartstrings, that hits a nerve at the right time, on the right platform, with the right community for it to take off. So this was one of a million posts that I put out there. Now, I thought it was funny. I was laughing. And I think most of the people, I don't know, that probably didn't comment think it's just as funny. I won't read the whole thing, but I just said, I keep hearing about occupational therapists might be moving to a doctorate level degree. If I were driving on the highway and I saw a car wreck in front of me, I don't think I'd be speeding up. And I went into Dolly and I said, hey, give me a graphic of a person driving a car, show me the hands in the steering wheel, and show me a car accident down the road. Real quick. So if you look at impressions, this post was 3 days ago on LinkedIn, 57,000 impressions, but it only had 53 comments. It's not a ton of comments, 5 reposts, 2 of which are you guys. So it did well, better than most of my stuff. And I think part of it is because, I think I posted it 3 days ago, Sunday. There's not a whole lot of content on the feed Sunday. This one started to gain some traction and then it just took off. My typical 7-day average for impressions is around 6,000. A really good week for me is 20,000. So for that one to get to almost 60,000, it stood out in the numbers.
So my impression is that my assumption, and you guys can either agree or disagree, but you brought in the occupational therapy world, you brought in the physical therapy world, plus the graphic of like a car wreck, and there's emotion there, and some of the wording obviously was chosen very creatively, and it is kind of like you kind of want to pose the question. You're obviously signaling a little bit of like your stance on it, but you are welcoming both sides. So then you're bringing in potential, even if it's just the impression side, right? Like it could be people that didn't comment and they shared it with their friends, or we don't even know, like who knows. We're getting a little bit of that, or we're seeing a little bit of that. You're bringing in the PT side, the OT side, maybe some other healthcare providers are seeing it. The graphic definitely, even though it's AI generated, it definitely catches attention with the hands and the steering wheel and the car wreck. And everyone knows, like, like you're heading, you're seeing a car wreck or you're heading towards it. So there's like multiple things here that I think I don't know, Tony, like if you showed Jimmy and I like 10 of your posts and it didn't show us the impression, and you're like, which one do you think had the biggest reach on LinkedIn? Like if we looked at your last 10 posts, I think Jimmy and I would say this one was probably in the top like 2 or 3.
Yeah,
I agree. I think the lessons are what people should pay attention to is I see a lot of, obviously, all of us follow a lot of other physical therapists. You almost timed your coffee drink there at the exact same time. Well done. The mistake that I see people making that Tony didn't make here was people keep trying to use social media as an advertising platform. And it can be if you pay for ads. That's fine. But what I mean is they keep talking about themselves. And what Tony here did was he picked a discussion point, something we'd talk about at a water cooler that has some juice to it, right? I mean, go on to Twitter or LinkedIn and mention, do you think it was a good idea that PT went to the doctorate? Right? It's the people who disagree fervently are going to tell you about it and the 15 reasons why, and they're going to run out of air. So you picked a topic that is really divisive, and then you put it in a different context this time. So it wasn't the same thing over and over again, but people got to sort of weigh in. So that's what it is. My example, or the not to do that, would be going online and telling people, we do this. We do concierge pain relief does in-home care. That's an ad, right? But showing the value of this thing, or asking, hey, wouldn't it be great if, or isn't it a shame that this doesn't? And it's not necessarily playing to the negative, but it's playing to problems. People don't gravitate towards your business or your solution until you point out the problem. I've worked with some CEOs of multi-million-dollar companies. I won't say which one in particular, but they refused to. We ran TV ads. We spent lots of money. And I said, it's going to sound like I'm playing to the negative, like I'm fear mongering, but I'm not. But you have to mention the pain point. If you don't, it's just you patting yourself on the back, and no one cares. Like your mom cares. That's it. I gotta be honest with you, man. If you're talking about how great you are, the only person that cares is your mom, right? But if you talk about a pain point, people will lean in. And I think Tony touched on a pain point here.
So going back to poker for a minute, you've got the basic game, right? You don't play anything out of position. You just play high pocket pairs and ace king. But then you've got the meta game. You've got the game on top of the game. All right, buddy. Thanks, Will. Which is, what are the emotions? How do we get deeper into this? And so when I'm looking at a post like that, I clearly know, okay, this is going to tug on emotions. This is going to get a visceral response. People are going to be upset and angry. And also people are going to resonate and they're going to be happy about it. And so the intent of a post like this, and really probably most of my posts, it's twofold. One is, I want to think this out, because maybe somebody's going to say something back to the blind spot I talked about last episode. Maybe somebody's going to say something that I genuinely did not see. This isn't my religion. This isn't my politics. I can be changed. Like, my mind can change on this. I'm not sold on any one position. So maybe somebody's going to tell me something that I hadn't thought of, or a new perspective. Totally open to it. The second side of this is, I just want my community, people who know me, think about, the things that I say, to resonate with the same message. So it solidifies that bond a little bit. And it's like, hey, look, this is what I'm thinking about. Yeah. These are topics that I'm trying to work through. Are you also trying to work through these topics? If you are, people like me do things like this, we're probably going to be simpatico on a lot of stuff. Another topic related to this that didn't get as much reach, but had just as much passion, and I want to hear your guys's, like, let's talk about this, is licensure. We've talked about it before. It's worth bringing back again. I said, look, PT was started almost 100 years ago. Things have changed in 100 years. We have better ways to learn. Do we need to go sit in a classroom to learn how to be a therapist? Does sitting in a classroom even teach us how to be a therapist? And then I said licensure, like, okay, 50, 60 years ago, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media. Maybe if somebody was doing something illegal, unethical, whatever, we needed a way to control that. Today, if I sneeze in the wrong direction, I'm going to be all over social media. So it's like, does licensure actually, quote, protect the public? I don't think it does. I think it's a joke. I shared on a post, look, I got licensed in 2006. Nothing has happened since then. As long as I pay my dues and I submit my CEUs, I could be a completely different person than the day I was licensed in 2006, almost 20 years later. It is not protecting the public in any reasonable way. And my feeling, real quick, is that it provides a false sense of security. Because then therapists came out and they were like, well, what's the difference between us and personal trainers and all that stuff? I said, you would look at somebody without a license more critically because you have no sense of who this person is. Once I say I have a license to practice physical therapy, it immediately legitimizes what I do and who I am, even if I'm completely off the rails. So I think it gives false sense of security. It's more detrimental than beneficial. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's seatbelts on airplanes.
I disagree.
Okay.
I disagree with you. So, like, there's a bunch of barbershops nearby, right? Salons and barbershops. In terms of public safety and public health, right? So, like, even those individuals, barbers and salon stylists, whatever, like, even they have to be licensed. I think in most states, definitely in New York. And of course, it doesn't mean that they're all going to be great or they're all going to, like, clean their clippers between every customer like they're supposed to. But in general, it enforces, or it has a certain hurdle or a certain standard and guidelines for a professional that's a service-based business, for example. Like, we'll talk about physical therapy or massage therapy or barbers or salons or, any other place that requires a license. It tries to filter out. It's not going to be a panacea. I agree with you, Tony, somewhat, but in general, yes, it is for public health and public safety for a lot of these. Like I want to have a licensed person that comes here that is like a plumber or someone that's like if they screw something up, there's some recourse there. Like if we hurt a patient, there's some recourse there's some ways that they can say like, wait, did they have certain sufficient knowledge or licensure or even being whatever bonded and certified and all those other things for different service-based providers. So in general, it's trying to protect the public. And then if someone has sciatica and they go to a personal trainer and the personal trainer stretches them like crazy and makes them worse, or they can't walk anymore, then that person, of course, not every consumer is going to like do all their due diligence and say like, wait, you're a personal trainer, you're not a physical therapist, you're not a massage therapist, whatever. We know that the public in general is kind of lazy about this whole thing of like doing background checks and checking out your service providers or whatever. So I think that's why states and federal or whatever have kind of instituted some of this stuff with licensure and certifications and some of these like hurdles and guidelines and structures. I don't know. Jimmy, what do you think?
It's the illusion of all the things that you said. It is that is what it's trying to do, but it's an illusion. Like, you're talking about like a plumber coming and you want some recourse. That's insurance. That's not licensure, right?
And if you're not licensed, you don't have that insurance. So if someone comes in, if someone says, I'm a plumber, they screw up my plumbing, my house explodes, now something crazy, now I cannot sue them, right? Can I sue them personally? I don't know. But like, I don't have as much recourse as a consumer to right the wrong that was done. And that person was acting like a plumber or whatever.
That person can't say plumber. They might be able to say handyman. Maybe that's like a great parallel, like plumber, handyman, physical therapist, personal trainer, or stretchologist, or any of those things. It's like in society, anybody can sue anybody. But understanding what that thing is you're buying safety. Like you're buying an emotional feeling like this is the right person, right? If I'm thinking about finances, am I looking for a CPA or a fiduciary or a financial planner? I'm pretty sure I could, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I could take a course this weekend on LinkedIn and become a financial planner tomorrow. Now, I might not be very good, but that gives you at least a context of the area that I've now decided I'm going to be working in the domain of. I wish it did work better, but I do think it's an illusion of those things. Like Tony said, man, I graduated in 2016. As long as I check these three boxes, is pay my dues and knock out some CEUs online, I have that. What happens in the which goes back to full circle of AI documentation. This is why we document. This is why I think good people document way too much. Is they're just trying to pretend, or they're trying to protect themselves from what's coming up behind them. We probably over document instead of under documenting. I think in the grand scheme of things, it was a good pitch to be able to say to lobbyists to try to make the argument of why we should get paid more. I don't think that's how it works. I think it worked out best for schools. Schools got to put icing on a taller cake they added 5% and charged 20% more. And I want to be in that business every day.
So hang on real quick.
Go ahead.
Yes, you can still be sued. If a handyman comes in and wrecks my house, I can sue them. I can also, on the flip side, be a plumber that doesn't have insurance, right? The two are completely separate. And to Jimmy's point, it is the illusion of safety. And I think that was more impactful 50 years ago, before we had so much access to so much information and we can touch everybody and learn about everybody and do all of these things. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying maybe the world has changed so much. It's worth looking at this from a new light, from a new perspective. Maybe there's a better way to do this. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. So specifically on that with licensure, Tony, is the public safer because of licensure in physical therapy or plumbing or whatever? Is the public safer in general? Not like the illusion part to the side. No, I disagree with that as well.
Okay, so let's hit it real quick and then we won't keep on this. I would say licensure is evidence from a third party to say this person took an exam and they passed the exam. That's it. That's all it tells me.
And that pool of people will become safer in the public. No, those professionals will result in safer practices. That's the assumption. But in general, the percentage would be they're safer in the public, running around doing their service, whatever the service is.
I mean,
But we
it's
don't check up on them.
theoretical. What?
We don't check up on them. There's no follow-up. It's like you passed the test in 2016. That's the what I think licensure.
Do you guys all have driver's licenses, or you don't have driver's licenses?
Yes.
So yeah.
Why? Isn't that an illusion?
Yes. It's exactly an illusion. This has nothing to do with my driving ability. I took that when I was 16.
Plus, I mean, I don't know about your demographic. I get patients that can't walk across the clinic and they drive themselves to therapy. I've got patients that have confusion, visual impairments, physical impairments, and they drive by themselves. It's scary.
Now, how would society be if there was no driver's license? If there was just like when you're 10 or 12 or whatever, you just get in a car, there's no training, there's no driver's license, there's no driving school, there's no permitting.
Hold on.
There would be more accidents. There would be more accidents.
Hold on. There's
100%.
a difference between a 10-year-old doing something and an adult, right? Because we said like our brains aren't fully formed.
But they're going to be in the population of people driving if they're 12, 14, 16, whatever. No driving school, no license, no permitting. There would be more accidents.
Yeah,
in America.
That place is called New Jersey. If you've been to New Jersey, that is exactly what it is like, and we avoid it at all costs, my friend.
Yes, agreed.
Have you guys
agree on that.
Have you guys seen the media? Two things. Have you seen the media coverage on Springboro, Ohio, or Springfield, Ohio?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have to get into it, but the part of Dave's argument is going on in Springfield with with accidents. Okay, Dave, I was driving since I want to say 12 or 13. Never got into an accident. I was driving years before I had a driver's license. I'm not saying it's not illegal. I'm saying this was the reality.
You cannot compare yourself to
I'm not comparing myself, but what I'm
person.
saying is there is still the idea, and maybe this goes back to political views, libertarian. Do you really think there's anyone in government, like in these bureaucracies, that's licensure or anything like that, like the person at the DMV, whoever you want to point the finger to, are they really keeping us safe? And driving, as an example, is a self-limiting behavior. You're putting your own self at risk. I don't think we give individuals at any age enough credit. I let my kid climb a tree. He's going to climb as high as he feels safe to climb, and he's going to figure that stuff out. I missed it. Glad Jimmy's on screen.
So we did miss a valuable comment, which is like, okay, let's say both of you are right, one of you is right, both of you are wrong. Doesn't really matter. I think the question is like, well, what are we going to do now? Because we talked about PT doing a thing. PT then said we were going from a bachelor's to a master's degree to a doctorate. And then we're watching a car wreck, right? We're saying, well, if OTD is going to do this, like, wouldn't you have slowed down, or wouldn't you got over to the right lane? And I noticed this person's in the that's the passing lane. Anybody from New Jersey, the far left one's the passing lane. That's what you're supposed to do there. Then you move over.
You got to get over. Yeah,
you got to get over. But then the question will be like, well, what do you do about it? This will likely never happen. But Will has a good point. Would we ever take a step backwards?
It's never going to happen.
Did we ever? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Did we get so much more out of going to a doctoral degree that we're still like, look where we are. I don't remember the exact year. I think it was, 12, 11, when it was mandated that you had to go to a doctorate. There was no more grandfather clause. Are we that much better? Because it's been that long and we're still arguing, do we even use the title we went and paid for? Like, dude, we aren't even on chapter 1. We're in the table of contents of being able to leverage this. Because if you're not even going to use the title, which again is an illusion, completely, all titles are, I'm not sure what the value was. But if it's more information and getting better, people were going to do that or not do that anyway.
So what I couldn't believe, and we can wrap it up with this and go to Dave's topic. What I couldn't believe, and Will's a great example of this. Will has had so much success. He's taken all of his knowledge, not just in the world of physical therapy, but everywhere. Dave brings up a great example all the time, which I had never considered, but opened my eyes to this, which is even if we never use our DPT credentials or licensing or anything like that, disclosure, I'm not a DPT, I'm a PT. We still have that knowledge. And how much is that knowledge worth in our own lives, keeping ourselves healthy, keeping ourselves fit, keeping ourselves mobile and independent. But the simplest answer that I can't believe nobody said across hundreds of comments across multiple platforms is, Tony, if you don't like the idea of licensure, just give it up. Go on your own, get out of the profession, give up your licensure. You can do anything you want to do. There is nothing keeping you in it. Yeah, and that's totally true. Like I could literally today,
your insurance contracts are keeping you in it.
Well, that's the thing. So but even within that, I know people who are not licensed therapists who own physical therapy practices and benefit from in-network contracts.
Right.
I really could just let it go.
It's going like deeper. It's like, it's like when religions claim that they created morality, it's like they didn't. So it's like the government saying we created safety. And then to get it, you have to show up here every Sunday, or you have to show up here every year and pay your dues. I get the idea, and it does look like a really, really, it looks like a structured program. It looks like it's trying to raise the floor. And all you have to do is come in on the ground floor, but then people can go to the basement as soon as they're done, as long as you don't get caught, right? I mean, so I get it, but I do think it's a little bit of an illusion. I wish it wasn't. I wish it leveraged. All right. So what are we talking about next? Are we talking about next level? Yeah.
Let's talk about Spanx, next level. What do you got, Dave?
Which one do you want to talk about first? Because they are different.
They're different. Well, we can talk about both because they're both physical products. So I saw somewhere, I guess on LinkedIn, I guess Scott Dickinson posted it. I don't know, something about, he said his first version of the next level was a skateboard. So I guess he had a skateboard. He laid down on his back on the ground, probably inside. And he, had a skateboard perpendicular to underneath his occiput under his head. And he was just kind of rolling his head back and forth for some assisted rotation. And that was like the prototype or the initial idea or something. I don't have other information around it, but looking at what it is now, it's basically that, but it's just like a platform that I think, kind of goes side to side for restoring range of motion and rotation of the neck and the cervical spine. And I just thought it was so clever. And I'm just, sidebar, I'm pumped that a physical therapist thought of this, did this, right? Is he a PT? I believe he is.
Yeah, he is.
So, plug, I just released an episode today where essentially I stole the format of NPR's How I Built This. And I talked to Garrett Drumheller, who created a product, and Scott Dickinson, who created a product, and coming out later this week, Helena and Patrick Esmond, who created a product. And the purpose of this 5-part series was to show where the problem was and then what they do about it. Like, believe me, I'm a guy with a lot of ideas. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's that execution, or that's that drive to say, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to figure out the next problem, the next problem, the next problem. His big issue was wrapping a TheraBand around your head and doing these neck exercises just didn't do it. But when people did it right, it really worked. But they were just sort of looking at him like, this is where we are in 2022 or whenever he started. He's like, this is where we are. And he literally did. He said he laid down on his skateboard. He's like, this is the motion, but we need resistance to this. How do I make this motion harder? And if you look at it now, it looks like a skateboard without wheels, kind of on a glide track, but then with variable resistance to it. He's got a suction cup you can put on the wall, so you can do it while in standing, stuff like that. So he goes deep into it. He made it on Netflix. Did you hear about that?
No.
What was the show on Netflix where like they follow around like Patrick Mahomes and stuff like that? Like, wasn't there like a behind the scenes or whatever?
That one was called Quarterback, and then now there's one called Receiver.
He made it on Quarterback. So like they're using it like on the show. Like, trust me, like that's kind of a big deal. Once in radio, I was running a radio station in Scranton while The Office was on set in Scranton. And we used to send boxes of stuff to NBC's prop department. And we got our logo on the show like twice. And believe me, it was like this big in the corner for 0.7 seconds. We still made a big deal about it because you know what? We got it on the big stage. A little bit of validation there for Scott, which I think is a big deal. Like his thing is his product or products have made it into like the NFL training rooms. What about Sarah Blakely, though? I think she's a great story, too. Tony.
Hang on. Before we hit that one, another PT invention that I want to highlight. I don't know if you guys remember this.
I bought this. Yeah.
Steve Sudell. So they raised $900,000 on Kickstarter when they announced this. I know everybody watching this has made some version of this. We used to do it with the pull-up bands, and we'd hook it onto the door frame and patients would lay on their back. There are so many examples of therapists who do so many innovative things in the clinic, but they never take that next step. You know, we had Urson on the show, Dr. E. He's created a bunch of physical products. He's done an incredible job with that stuff. Just look around what you're doing every single day. You are modifying things. That is a physical product. It's just taking it to that next step if you want to go down that world. Now, the interesting thing about this, the neck hammock, was as soon as I saw this come out publicly, there were like 1,000 replicas coming out of China for that same exact product at like a third of the price.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the route you want to go, but go ahead.
I was just about to say that. I had Steve back on PT, I almost said PT podcast, back on PT Tech Talk years ago to promote that Kickstarter. I bought one of those. It works, but then years later, I said, "Hey, Tony, send me your Amazon affiliate link because I want some traction that actually works." So then I got the one. What's the other one, Tony? The one that the company sent you with the
comfort track.
The comfort track,
pneumatic cervical device that you lay on your back for.
Yeah. So either the Saunders unit or the comfort track, those work a lot better, just flat out. And then
those are $350. This one was like $70.
I know.
Yeah.
And you get what you pay for. One's more effective than the other, in my opinion. But also with the copycats and China and all these other manufacturers, this is one of the reasons I believe to stay away from physical products. Urson and others, prove that wrong. They can do it, but you have to have some money and energy to go into physical products, knowing that it's going to get copied, and you have to split your attention to current product, future product development, and then also defending your product, which is not easy at all. Hopefully with Next Level, they have kind of like, I'm assuming it kind of looks a little intricate with like how it's constructed, and maybe it's a little bit more challenging to copy compared to the neck hammock, which appears to be very easy to copy.
I mean, it's proof of concept, right? Like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. It means that you're onto something. But yeah, it is a different business. Like, understand that this is a different business. Now, these episodes will start to blend together for me when you've done more than 1,700 episodes, even if I did them last week. But both of them said working with people who clearly understand this type of business was, if not the biggest, even bigger than the idea. So I forget which one had talked about the people that they worked with, and then they mentioned some products that all three of us would know if I just mentioned them. And they said, this person helped invent this, or this person didn't help invent this. This person took that person and then brought them to the next level and then had to do all those things. They play defense while you're still playing offense. It's a business. You have to decide if that's the business you're in, right? Because this is different than running a clinic, but being a clinician is different than running a business. It's not like you do this you're a clinician for 10 years and then you become a manager. Being a manager, inpatient, outpatient, anywhere, is a different business than being a practitioner. They are very, very wildly different just because you've been there for a long time. I ran into that in my radio career. I was on air and I was a assistant program director. And when my boss left, I had to do that. And I was like, oh, this is like a totally different job. Like, yes, I know you need to know which end of the microphone to talk into. That's as smart as I was in radio, but I had to know other things. And recognizing that is a terribly important lesson that some people pay for with blood, sweat, and tears. Dave,
tell me about Spanx.
All right. Well, if you don't know Spanx, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. Sarah Blakely, founder, and the original company and product, which she now sold, and she's just mega wealthy and super passionate about entrepreneurship. She's awesome. Spanx originally was like undergarment, compression kind of. She like had pantyhose, cut the feet off the pantyhose, and started to wear that and sell that and all that. So she was like mega super successful. But the topic I wanted to bring back up today, because we're physical therapists, is she's got a new company. It's called Sneaks, Sneex, I believe. And that's her new company is a comfortable high heel. Now, we don't wear high heels, but in terms of physical therapists, it makes sense, right? The front of the foot, the toe box, is like a sneaker. There's different, it kind of looks like a sneaker in the front, and then it has a stiletto heel in the back. Super impressive. She has videos with, I mean, she is just incredible with marketing. Like I follow her on Instagram, and she had some customer, I forget what city. She's like, oh, this is the first online customer. So she takes the box of shoes and they go create video content, which I know Jimmy would like, create video content, delivering the box of shoes to the first online customer. And this, guys, this company also will be a multi-billion-dollar company. And it's something that a physical therapist could have invented. What do you think?
I mean, first of all, assuming I don't wear high heels is a little bit bold in 2024, Dave. Let's not make assumptions on footwear. So having done this, I'm not a creator in terms of a product, but I do love listening to things like How I Built This. And her first problem, Spanx, which again, if you listen to her How I Built This episode, everybody told her this is not going to work. This is not going to work. And she highlighted they were all men. They did not understand the problem. Yep. And they did not understand the problem for 50% of the world, right? Using air quotes there. So is there a problem here? I would say I understand this problem more than I would the Spanx issue that she created then sold, which is I've been to a wedding. I've been out with someone who does wear heels, who's then said, oh, love the way they look, but man, these things hurt. So if you can solve them better, which it looks like she's giving a shot at, I'm not in this space. So I don't know if anybody's taken a shot at it, but I would say this has got a decent leg up on the competition and on the market.
So looking at the common theme here, the common trend, even going back to Next Level, look at their content, look at their image. This is all original. These guys honestly do the best that I've seen when we talk about social media. You've got NFL affiliation, you've got this professional violinist, Mahomes is on some of these, MMA fighters is on, like they do such an incredible job. I think too many of us think, oh, well, I'm going to save money. I'm not going to spend money. I'm going to, we shortchange the most important thing because we don't think of the impact that has.
Correct.
Whether we're talking about our own little business, I'm guilty of it. It breaks my heart to spend $1,000 or $10,000 on marketing because you can't necessarily always put that exact dollar return on it, but it builds the brand. I was listening to Rory Sutherland again. Like I listen to every single interview he does. And he talks about like a cafe. You can obviously get a cup of coffee at the gas station for 99 cents. You can get a cup of coffee at the diner for $1.27, or you can pay $5 at a cafe to get a hand-pressed, custom cup of coffee. And he was talking about the furniture outside. Even if nobody's sitting in the furniture outside, they put it out there to signal that we are open. Come on in. Yeah. And so there are so many of these things. When I opened my first clinic, I thought, oh, I just need the equipment I want. I want a good set of rubberized dumbbells and I want a great functional trainer. That's all I need in the space. But then I realized people would walk in, they'd look around, they say, you don't have any equipment. You can't help me. So I literally started buying equipment just for the decor. So
to get that second and third visit,
see it, and they'd be like, hey, this is, wow, you have this. So like we don't give enough credit to the brand, the marketing, the message that we're sending.
Marketing is the first thing that goes when there's financial issues or slowdown, a tightening of the belt. And historically, I'd love to, maybe I'll dig in and find some of these interviews that have come out. Historically, companies, brands, organizations, professions who double down when everybody else pulls back, when that comes out, they come out the other side 10x further than they were. It's simple. It's not easy though, right? In the middle of COVID, do you double down or not?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I started spending more on Google ads in COVID, and I'll have to pull up the numbers. I'll have to go back because the leads were so much cheaper then. Jimmy, you're 100% right.
Yeah. So going to prove Dave right, if people would tell me, Tony, you know what? You're totally right. I agree. The licensure does not protect the community. It does not protect the public. There's no direct advantage to licensure except it's marketing.
It
It's
is marketing.
branding. It is the value of the brand, because the consumer still, whether it's true or false, the consumer still believes there's some sort of value in those credentials behind your name. The reason to invest in the licensure is for the branding and the marketing of those letters.
That's how I would
Okay.
market it. I would say, this is my education. I cared about this enough to go through. We've all been to school. I went to school on top of school on top of school, and I decided to do that. And every year I need to do a little more education, or every other year when my CEUs are due, I need to do that. So I think that's the value, right? It's a quick way of understanding or trying to communicate what value you actually bring. Although we've talked about on this show before, saying I'm a physical therapist is kind of ambiguous, right? Like being able to say that, like, I don't know what you provide. I don't know. It's sort of hard. We also talked about, Tony, the other last week, which was, do we rename what we actually do? Do we go back to reconstruction aid? Do we take PTOT and speech and we roll them together into a rehab doctor? I don't know, but being able to explain what you do simply, that's a superpower. That's an entire different business. Just like business is a degree, communications is a degree. There's some stuff to it. You don't need the degree to communicate, though. You don't need a marketing degree to market, but it gives you a little bit of background for it. There's many people that I know that are better at marketing than that never went to school for it.
So taking some of what Dave was talking about, and we all talked about physical products, the challenges with physical products. You've got big capital investment. You have to buy inventory. Depending on the product, you might have to buy different sizing. You have to find sources in China to generate the product. I do think there are opportunities to do something like this, obviously, in the digital world. So let me share, if you guys didn't see, I'm going to share one.
Oh yeah, this is cool.
In the middle of the screen, if you guys are on YouTube, this is a picture of my garage entryway. So you pull into the garage, you got 2 steps and then a 3rd step going into the door. This is exactly what I did. And I'm just experimenting, playing with it. I turned on the measurement app on my iPhone. So it's got LiDAR. So I do a measurement of the door width. I do a measurement of the height from the top of the step to the entryway. And then what I did was I did a screen capture. So I pushed the 2 buttons on the side of the iPhone to capture that image. I put that image into ChatGPT. And I said, the simple prompt was, give me a home safety evaluation of this garage entryway. I did the same thing looking at my front entryway. I took a picture of the curb. I measured it, snapped the picture, and it spit out a really decent report of, what can be improved, what could be, watched out for. Like here, it noticed that there were paint cans underneath the stairs. Wow. It noticed that the height was 9 inches, which is a little taller than would be expected. It gave me like 5 or 6 recommendations. And while it's not a comprehensive report, this is clearly something that we could use in 30 seconds to like generate interest and send it to the potential client to say, hey, I noticed these things. If you want a deeper dive into the assessment, keeping mom and dad safe, I'm happy to do it. And then you lead them to the next thing. I've been playing around with that all week. So then I took it and I said, well, wait a minute. If it can analyze structures, why can't it analyze humans? Now, I tend to be in the camp that the best posture is your next posture, that there is no perfect posture, all that kind of stuff. I tend to have a negative response to the posture gurus that are out there. But that being said, there's clearly a commercial demand. People want to be told that their posture is terrible and they want to be told how to improve their posture. I do have a HIPAA release, media release for this individual, but whoops, there it is. So then I went in the clinic. I was like, hey, let's see what ChatGPT can do in these cases. So I snapped a quick picture from a posterior profile. I draw these lines in the photo app on my iPhone. I take that straight into ChatGPT and I say, hey, give me an analysis of this individual's posture. And so where I see this going from a commercial perspective is, you guys know I've shared this idea. I love what 99 Designs did for logos and branding. 99 Designs is a website. You put your project out there and you get all these proposals and recommendations. I can't believe there isn't a site. This is an idea for someone where somebody could upload a photo like the one you just saw, and therapists who want to offer recommendations, that's not a full evaluation. You're like, hey, here's an idea of what I would do. If you want the full plan of care, it's behind the paywall. But now an individual client could get ideas from 5, 50, 100 therapists and pick the one that resonates with them. They're going to be manual therapists, neurotherapists, exercise-based therapists. What's up, Jimmy?
I was going to say a few things. Number one, people don't want to be told their posture is bad. People want to put a name to why they're feeling the thing. I love emotions. I go down to that. We love names, right? Started working with Vestibular first 2 months ago. One of the most powerful reasons that clinicians and patients that I've talked to has said it's the infrared goggles they use is because they're feeling dizzy or they're experiencing these feelings, but there's no scan. Everybody keeps saying, like, I've felt dizzy. Can't you just lay down for a little bit and then get up? And then when you put them in the goggles, there is a very clear thing. You do not, for some of them, you do not need to be a gigantic expert. You can turn to that patient and go, see, and the patients have explained to me, I instantly like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like validation to themselves, validation to their spouse, and then send that report back to their physician and go, this is what I found as a clinician using this tool. I think this is what you're showing is something similar. People want something, they want a reason for that. Why does my shoulder hurt? Why does everything hurt? They want validation. They want a name so they can, because if I have a name, if I have a destination, I can plot a course. And that's all everybody does is journeys.
So the individual on the screen, and Dave, I want to hear your impression. He had no idea, what he looked like until we snapped the picture and I showed him. So to Jimmy's point, he's like, I know I don't feel great. I know there's something going on, but until they see it, and how many of us see our posterior view in a normal day anyway?
Twice a day for me.
Dave, what do you think? Do we have an idea?
Well, my question would be with this, I'm more interested in, once you have the almost like those plumb lines kind of thing from behind the patient, did you then show him and say, hey, like you're off kilter? What did you say? Like you're a little imbalanced, and like physical therapy and exercise and mobility or whatever that we offer can help improve that? Like that, I'm really curious more about that part.
Can I guess what Tony said?
Yeah, please.
I bet you,
it may or may not help.
you were super truthful. Listen, from this picture, we can see that things aren't maybe symmetrical. Do I think that's exactly the cause? Maybe, maybe not. But I think there's some things we can do in the clinic to help you get stronger, move a little more, that might make you feel better, regardless if we take this picture in 6 weeks and it's similar. Really what we're going for is we want you to feel better and move more.
Yeah, that's basically it. I said, look, okay, here we go. You're clearly shifted, right? Upper torso shifted to the right, pelvis shifted to the left. But I could show you 100 pictures of 100 people with the same exact posture who have no symptoms, no pain, no functional limitation.
Yep.
If you tell me you don't like the way this looks and you want to look better for aesthetics, okay, we can work on that. But I can't tell you that if we correct this posture, it's going to have any impact on function or symptoms. There's a poor correlation there. There's no reason to do it for that. In fact, and this is what I told him, I said, the reality is your body is probably doing this for a reason. If we try to correct it now, we could be impinging or causing more compression on nerves in other areas that you're not even, dealing with today. So I said, the bottom line is, what do you want to do? Do you want to golf? Do you want to carry a basket of laundry? Let's focus on that. And if you want to work on aesthetics because you don't feel confident, you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, we can work on aesthetics. But I don't want you to think that changing this posture in any way is going to, fix the symptoms that you're dealing with, because there's no correlation there. And of course we go through all the stuff about the MRIs and the decade cohorts and all of the stuff you see in the poor correlation there. And,
Right.
yeah, that's me in the clinic every single day. Most of my day is spent saying, I understand what we see. That doesn't mean that's what's causing your symptoms, but let's get you healthy. Let's get you moving. Let's build some confidence in what you can do. Maybe that stuff goes away.
Yeah. Where I think most PTs start to hate these types of things is if you went to a course based on this app, AI, whatever, to teach you how to fix people, is they start selling this as the solution, right? Well, you're 0.3 millimeters off, which means we have to do the whatever maneuver and blah, 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 right? So that's when people come in, they go, this feels a little snake oily, because if you just take this snake oil, you're going to feel better. I'd rather say, all right, this could be it, but you came here for an emotional reason, right? You came here for a reason. Let's fix that reason. I could take a picture and, like you said, your look shifted here. I could measure it, but does that give me any diagnostic accuracy? Does that help me? Does that change my plan in any way? But when you start selling something that you can't provide, and then you get to the next level, I think when people start to believe their own bullshit, when they start to go, oh no, here's what I was taught. When someone has the method named after themselves and they're selling that to people, that's their business model. That makes me a little nervous. I think it's exactly what Scott said there. It's a tool to help people understand, to give it a little validation, right? This is a tool, a placebo, maybe even for a good reason, which is, okay, we see something, you're in the right place. Let's figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
Now, the other image that Tony shared with the measurement, Tony, with the step,
that's
that kind of goes back to what we talked about a couple episodes with the home assessments. When I was away in Georgia, I was up on the cabin, and we were talking about the home assessments.
Yeah.
And so also the other picture that you showed maybe last week or the week before about the sink, you had your restroom and the sink, and that did not have measurements. So if a therapist they go into a patient's, you could do it at your own apartment, your own home first. Take a bunch of pictures, do the measurements like Tony said. Take those measurements, drop it into, would you use ChatGPT or Gemini? Would you use?
This one was ChatGPT.
So you drop the photos into ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm a physical therapist, I'm an occupational therapist, whatever. Here's the measurements of different areas of this residence. Are these ADA compliant? And can you give me some recommendations, whatever? That will literally, like you said earlier, a few minutes ago, it'll spit out a report. And that's how a therapist can charge $300, $400, $500 for a home assessment. There, right. That picture, right here, this picture has no measurement of the sink height, the toilet height, the light switch, the doorknob, whatever. So that's just a reminder about the home assessment, like with pictures and the report.
But wait, there's more. So look at what Dave just said. I'm going to yes and it. This one does have measurements. And Tony, did you take the measurements with the Measure app on iPhone, or did it just do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Perfect. So there's no measurements here, except is that an Airwick air freshener?
I think so. I don't know.
And I bet you AI would be able to know the exact height to the millimeter of an Airwick air freshener. And now it can do the Pythagorean theorem and figure out exactly how tall the Airwick is. And then by using the Airwick, it knows how tall the toilet is. And then it has, you've given it a banana. Do you guys know the funny thing about scientists and bananas and stuff like that? Americans will use anything except for the metric system to measure health. So people will put a banana in a picture, like banana for reference in terms of scale. So you don't need a banana. Or maybe that's a product, is you sell it to PTs. All you gotta do is put this banana, because this banana is exactly 9 inches long, in the picture. And now the AI goes, got it. For reference, that banana is this big, which means that. It's using it as a reference point. But look, in the future, you're not even not the future, in the present, if you just do it a little slightly differently, like, okay, now knowing the height of that Airwick, now base everything on that because it's in the picture. There's a zero. You have a reference point.
Well, like I mentioned to Dave, I know there are apps that people use for 3D printing, and you can 3D scan a space. Yep. Once you start seeing, and that's the whole idea, I think, of this show, right? The podcast. It's look, we're not giving you finished ideas. We're not saying this is going to make you $1 million. We're planting seeds in your head. And now you take that seed and you grow it and water it and fertilize it. And then it turns into something that could be completely different than what we're talking about here. But the whole idea between, I think, what all three of us share is there are so many different perspectives and points of view, and we just want to expose you to some of those ideas.
The market is not saturated. I know it feels like that, but I'm telling you, the world is huge. And when you start to drive around, you realize how big it is. Just understand it's even bigger than that. It's 100 times bigger than that. But we do want 1% of any idea that you take from this show and then go and become a billionaire. We just like 1%, or have us on your podcast when you eventually become a billionaire.
Hey, Stephen Dunn is here. I totally missed all of these comments. I was on the wrong screen.
I want to know what the product was, Stephen. What was, I mean, selling 500 anything is not easy. Getting 500 people to click like on something, not simple these days. Never mind pulling out your wallet and buying something.
And I know Stephen a bit. I don't know the product either. So we got to get him on, or he's got to tell us if he's still here live or in the comments later.
Pilates, gyrotechnics or tonics, or he's got a ton of stuff. All right, guys, let's hit the closing thoughts, parting shot. What's on your mind?
What you got, guys?
Parting shot. Guys, if you're not following Tony Maritato on Facebook and LinkedIn, you absolutely need to connect with him. Subscribe to Learn Medicare Billing, because Tony, you put out the most creative things, and you do it because you're a creative, clever person. You're not trying to do it to show off. You're not posting all your videos all over social media like I do, because I'm just trying to go right to that right hook. But Tony posts such creative and insightful and thoughtful stuff. Rob Vining and I had been saying it 8, 9, 10, whatever years ago. And so just please, Tony, keep it coming out, keep pumping it out. It's a lot of text-based posts. Sometimes you do videos, but it's really interesting stuff. It gets people talking, it gets people thinking. And this is for real. Like, when I say I disagree with Tony on stuff, this is not to, laugh on the show. Like, if he says he doesn't believe manual therapy works, and I say manual therapy does work, and, all that, like, I actually genuinely agree with most, maybe 75% of what Tony agrees with. And then, other 25%, I strongly disagree on some of his stances. And so, yeah, just that's my parting shot. Follow Jimmy, follow Tony. These guys post great stuff, and that's why I'm just lucky to be here with them.
Yeah, and I would say the same. Like, it's not even just that, like, I share the ideas that I'm trying to work through in my own head, but you guys have so many unique perspectives, so many ideas. The quiet ones are always the ones with the best ideas. So if you start sharing those thoughts, whether, they're controversial or not, doesn't matter. You allow your ideal client to start to understand what's important to you, and that draws them to you. It's push versus pull marketing. You're never going to convince somebody you're the best by trying to tell them you're the best. You're going to convince them because they're going to get to understand and know you personally. Jimmy?
Yeah, I'll yes and both of those with my parting shot, which is, I think the hesitation for people to share things is, I need to put out a finalized perfect product, a perfect tweet, a perfect PDF, a perfect solution. And I think I actually lost my way maybe 3 or 4 years ago when my podcast started to gain traction. I started to say, well, now I need to act I went from a student who launched a podcast, and all my show was vulnerability, and I don't really understand this, but in 20 minutes, we're going to understand a little bit more, maybe not everything. And then somewhere along the way, I was like, well, I need to be like everything else. And I started to do that, and then had less success and was confused by it, until someone smart was like, this doesn't sound like you. This sounds like you trying to be something else. So don't try to be something else. Aim for that authenticity by putting out 80% of an idea, or I'm trying this. What do you think? That isn't social media. That's media. That is social. That's actually how you win at that game, knowing that you're never actually going to win at that game. But that's how to use those platforms, or these platforms, to actually move your needle and other people's needle. We'll be back on Thursday. Do we have a front tease for Thursday? Is there anything on Thursday we're talking about?
I don't know.
I have the next level episode out. We talked about today, Scott Dickinson, who, by the way, listen to the episode if you don't have an inkling of an idea of creating a product. He's going out of his way. He gets this a lot from people, he says, PTs specifically, who are like, I want to create a product. What do I do? He loves to share where he almost crashed and where he succeeded. Big fan of that. And Garrett Drumheller came out yesterday. He created the Nordstick. And we're just mentioning 2 of their products. They each have more. Later on this week, Patrick and Helena Esmond, who I get to work with now at Vestibular First, they created a tech solution. That episode will be coming out. They created goggles that help vestibular therapists see in the dark and identify things you cannot see with the naked eye. And then we'll also have, I have 5 of these. Those are 3. You do a lot of episodes, you start to forget. We got some reinvention of a rollator done by a physical therapist. So we'll have Matt Kumela. Matt Kumela will be on the show as well. So that'll be our 5 episodes this week.
Maybe as a potential topic, Tony had some cane idea with like a hand, and like your hand would go on the top of a hand. That sounds like we could make that. I feel like that could be a physical product. We could 3D print it. Jimmy, did you hear about this? Like a cane where instead of a handle, it's like of hand, and then your hand goes in the hand. I don't know how that would work functionally if the person doesn't have, what do you need? Like ulnar deviation?
I believe when I saw that, I went to ChatGPT and I came up with slightly inappropriate names for this, all beginning with handy.
The handy.
Handy cane.
There's the tease. We got it.
If it's your job to describe those canes, it's you put the A and B together. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Subscribe, watch, and follow everywhere.